Welcome to the Enjoy More 30s Family Finance Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to making life more enjoyable for young families by hitting on the financial topics that tend to weigh on us, stress us out, and distract our focus from simply enjoying life.
Hello, thank you for joining me as always on the Enjoy More 30s Family Finance Podcast. Every week, as you know, I'm talking to you about money so you can take steps forward, gain that confidence, remove that financial anxiety, because we want you just to be focusing solely on making your life more enjoyable. This series, as you must know by now, we're in the 8th episode of it. We focused all of our energy on the kids. We focused our energy on your kids with the Your Kids Money Mindset series, because as a family, the kids are what we're all about. So we want to make sure that we help you with that part of your life as much as possible. If your kids are better off, we know that you'll be happier too. And what we know is that we're not just trying to get through this today, but we're trying to build something for our kids. That's why we're listening. So their lives are better. So their kids' lives are better. But maybe surprisingly, that can very often, and not just in the US, but all over the world, it's not the case that wealth goes on beyond the third generation. So as always, if you like what you're hearing, please make sure to subscribe or follow us on Apple Podcasts or really wherever you listen. Clicking stars, writing reviews, it really, really helps us reach the literally, millions of other young families out there just like you. Last week, we talked about those things called trusts, those things you've heard about on TV, the movies, those things that sound like rich people have these, maybe I should too. And we broke down more as to what they are and when you would actually really have to be concerned with them when it comes to your kids. So if you haven't checked that out yet, please make sure to check it out soon. Today's episode is actually a bonus episode. I had not originally planned to cover this topic, but I happened to come across it mid-season, and it's titled Motivations Money Lasts Just 3 Generations. So what we're going to cover today is how human nature all of the world seems to dictate that money and wealth is going to dissipate as the generations progress. The goal for today's episode is for you to become aware of the challenges that are not associated with creating the wealth. We're always focusing on how to create the wealth, but of actually maintaining the wealth across generations, which requires some really completely different techniques. And in many ways, wealth is much harder to maintain than it is to create because it leaves your direct control. The Chinese have a saying, wealth does not pass 3 generations. So that's about as direct as you can get. The Japanese are a little bit more subtle, rice paddies to rice paddies in 3 generations. The Scots, the father buys, the son builds, the grandchild begs. And here in America, we use shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. So maybe you've heard one or all of these. They all kind of go to the same thing. What all of these mean is by the 3rd generation, just the 3rd, wealth is lost, and you have to start all over again at the bottom. So why is wealth lost? What happens to it? The 1st generation is poor. They have nothing, just their motivations to be better. They have a purpose in life to make life not better just for them, but for their family. They're alone, they want to be self-sufficient, they want that autonomy to create. And as they advance, they're trying to make their business better and better. They're trying to get that mastery. The 2nd generation now gets to build off the 1st. They likely saw, to some degree what their parents went through. It wasn't, as hard for them, obviously. They saw how hard they worked. They heard stories of how hard they worked to get there. They're not building from scratch. They have certain guidelines, most likely, of the direction their parents went in, but they still have enough purpose, autonomy, and mastery. Those 3 things, very important things, they have those aspirations to likely continue carrying that torch on. Then we get to the 3rd generation, the grandchildren. The grandchildren never saw what grandma and grandpa went through. It was more removed. By now, they've probably grown up with certain privileges, let's say, an easier life, and that value for money, so the relationship they have, the mindset they have when it comes to money, is likely altogether different than just 2 generations ago. And as you can see by the many sayings all over the world, can cause the money to quickly dissipate and starts that cycle all over again for the next generation to come to start building up from nothing. Now, I had heard of the shirt sleeves reference before, but it wasn't until a recent podcast episode that I listened to by Nikki Anani and her Connected Generation podcast, which is fantastic, by the way, where she interviewed the author of a book called Intrinsic, and that evaluated this very concept. What happens when there is a lack of purpose, a lack of autonomy, a lack of ability to pursue a mastery? And what this can lead to is a very unhealthy and potentially self-destructive money mindset. The ironic part of really all of this, though, to me, is an easier life is what we're all by default trying to establish for our kids, right? We're working so hard for you, for your better life. We fall down, you don't have to fall down. We'll fall down for you. We take the risk, you don't have to take the risk. We'll take the risk for you. As human beings, however, if you remove our purpose, our autonomy, our ability for mastery, we seemingly become lost. We don't have a direction. If life is easy, like we're trying to make our kids' lives easier, if we make it easy, though, that means they may not have any purpose. If their stability comes with limited autonomy to operate, if everything's been mastered and created for them already, where am I to go kind of a mentality? This really, really resonated with me because so much of what I'm doing and working with middle-class families is creating wealth for retirement, creating wealth for happiness and otherwise. And thankfully, this can often lead to a surplus of it for our clients so that they may share more of it with the generations to come. It makes them happy to give and make life better for their children. In fact, we have to encourage many of these people that can afford it to spend the money. And it sounds weird, probably having a financial advisor encourage you to spend your money. But as you know from listening to this podcast, it's all about making life as enjoyable as possible, not dying with a bunch of money in your pocket. What this all kind of leads to is greatly amplifying the importance of teaching your kids an excellent money mindset. This teaching that you give them has to extend not just to them, but to their kids and maybe their kids to be able to have wealth actually last long term. A mindset then that establishes money as a tool with happiness and life as the goal instead of the goal in of itself. If you solely just want them to work so that they have money and stability, then the logic follows if they're simply given money and stability, then they're all good to go. As we just saw though, worldwide, not just in the US, worldwide, that is not how it tends to play out. If we instead encourage them to find a purpose that they love and enjoy, give them space for that autonomy, even if it means failures along the way, give them that opportunity to master something completely new, then they'll have the building blocks of a happy life, a longer lifespan, and as well as longer lifespan to the wealth that we're helping create. Talk to your kids when they're young. I can't encourage that enough. Teach them why they are really working when they get older. Even talk to them jointly about what they may like to do with the wealth that they eventually receive. What would they like to help create? What lessons would they want their kids and their grandkids to learn and develop? If every generation kind of looked at the money as a nicer and nicer set of tools to create with, what wondrous things could they all set their mind to building? So again, I want you to walk away from today's episode with a new mindset when it comes to generational wealth. And maybe re-examine the importance and the skills that we need to teach for wealth to truly be generational for those to come. So we want to expand our mindset. I hope you're walking away with an expanded mindset of, am I just trying to make my life easier for my kids because that automatically defaults to better? Or should I be trying to shape the mindset to enable them to go out and create a purpose, autonomy to move, and just a reason and a desire and a passion to go out and master something? Because at least in my opinion, I feel like for my own kids as a parent, that's what I see them making them really, truly happy in their lives. So thanks for tuning in today. Next week, we have the final episode, which is the series recap for Your Kids' Money Mindset. I've really, received such a good charge of energy from this season. Getting to just focus and think about how to enable you to not just help yourself, but to really help your children as well, both practically as well as maybe mindset and emotionally wise. So I very much thank you for tuning in, being a part of that experience. Overall, if you're able to implement what we cover, like I say every week, fantastic. You have less to worry about, more focus on enjoying life. As always, if you do want me to help with anything, have questions you need help in clarifying, check out the Ask Joe section on the show's website, Enjoy More 30s. That's enjoymore30s.com. Until next week, thank you very much for joining me today, and I really look forward to connecting with you again soon.
The conversations on this show are Joe's opinions and provided for general information purposes only. They do not constitute accounting, legal, tax, or other professional advice for your specific situation. You should always seek appropriate advice from a financial advisor, accountant, lawyer, or other professional before acting upon any content or information found here first. Joe is affiliated with New Horizons Wealth Management LLC, a branch office of TFS Securities Inc. and TFS Advisory Services, an SEC-registered investment advisor, member FINRA/SIPC.